Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of the Courageous Leadership Academy Live. My name is Dr. Kelly Waltman, and if you are new to this series, we talk about all things leadership, just helping you be a better leader, business owner, entrepreneur. We want to help you be just better at what you do and better at leading the people around you. And some of our conversations are just about being a better human. So, and today's guest, I'm really excited to have him and have this conversation. His name is Adam Lawrence, and he is the managing partner of Process Improvement Partners, LLC. He has over 30 years of experience in process improvement activities targeted at manufacturing and business processes. He's facilitated 300 plus Kaizen events in multiple industries around the world. Adam aligns with leadership, engages teams, and creates sustainable results. So again, perfect topic for us to be discussing today. In Adam's sessions, he develops sessions that are fun, engaging, and laser focused. And he's also the author of the book, The Wheel of Sustainability. And that's something we're really going to be diving into and talking about a lot today. So without further ado, let's bring Adam into the session. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for inviting me to join you today.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about this topic because I think we can all look for ways to be more efficient and help with the longevity of our careers, our businesses, just, feeling better about our days, being more productive. So I think there's a lot of application for our conversation today. So thank you so much.
Sure. Happy to be here.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share by way of introduction? I always like to offer up to my guests anything else that they'd like that we should know?
No, we're just thanks for reading my intro as you did. So I appreciate that. No, I just been here living in central Pennsylvania, but helped groups all over the world. Love to just see the joy in people as they solve complex problems. And then my mission is to help them sustain those solutions.
That's great. So in the preface to your book, I love this. You reference yourself as a Kaizen ninja. So for people who aren't acquainted with the concept of Kaizen, can you talk to us about that and talk about the whole idea of being a ninja? I love that so much.
Oh, okay, sure. So the term Kaizen is a Japanese term, and it's very simply making things better, change for the better, change for the good. So when I run what we call a Kaizen event, we're taking a focused team to solve a really complex problem that a business hasn't been able to solve. And we're fully focused for a period of time, anywhere from half a day to 4.5 days. So we call that a Kaizen event. So it's all about just trying to accomplish something that no one else has accomplished. Now, the idea of a ninja is that I'm just a little bit playful from the idea that ninjas were able to accomplish things without people knowing they were there.
Right.
So normally it isn't seen as a positive thing.
Right.
In history, right? So we want to take that and turn it into positive. So I facilitate teams to accomplish challenging objectives. So the best facilitators that I've ever seen are the ones that you don't even know they were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't look like they had any ideas. The team figures it out. Right. But we all know if we've participated in teams with good facilitation, facilitator helped guide them there. So the idea of the ninjas, we're in the shadows, right? We're trying to help them get there. But sometimes you have to jump out of the shadows, engage in such a way to divert or redirect or so on. So I like the imagery of the Kaizen ninja. Behind me, you can see the little toy. I love giving out silly things, right? But we, the whole idea is how do we get people to do something that they couldn't have done on their own?
Right. I love that. Not only just it's great imagery and you can have some fun with it too, but it reminds me of, we think about in being more coach-like as a leader and being willing to kind of show that curiosity and really empower the person that you're coaching to come up with the answers, to come up with the solutions. And so you're there to ask the right questions and give those nudges and help maybe move that dialogue along, but you're not the one coming in and really giving directives. You're really empowering that person. I think that that's a great parallel to thinking about, I had Michael Bungay Senior on here not too long ago, and he talked about that being coach-like. And so I think that that's a great parallel to think about it that way. And I can see that would be really powerful.
Yeah, and there are some that might say that have been in my sessions that maybe I'm not in the shadows as much as I might say
You
that I
think?
am. There are moments when the team
Yeah.
might be doing something that might defy the laws of physics. So you have to kind of bring them back to,
Yes.
okay, sounds great, but we don't have $1 million to spend. We can't defeat gravity, so we're going to have to do something a little different. And sometimes I'm able to share. So I've done 300 or so Kaizen events all around the world. I've seen so many different ways that teams have solved problems that I'm able to bring that to the next team that I'm trying to help as well.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And of course, yes, you are there for a reason. You're bringing value and bringing expertise and to that session. So you're there for a reason, but coming from that perspective of wanting to try to stand back as much as you can, I think makes sense. But yeah, of course you need to step in and provide some guidance. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I talk about a lot, and we talk about a lot in this series, is employee engagement and empowerment. And so can you talk about, why employee engagement, empowerment, why they're so essential to the Kaizen process, and why that's something that, we should really be considering?
That's a great question, Kelly. So my issue is that I could do a whole session just on this. So luckily you're managing time. Okay, so the whole point is somebody who comes in from the outside can't own the solution. So you have to get those that are engaged in it to take ownership, to feel that they have the leadership to make really difficult decisions. And we always pick team members. I always coach leadership. The team members need to be the folks that are feeling and dealing with the problem and are experts in it. Mm-hmm. So it can be anybody from the janitor up to the CEO. But if they're the ones that are dealing with day to day, minute to minute, they have ideas. They don't want to deal with this unsafe or unproductive or stressful conditions that they're dealing with. So my whole thing is, how do I draw everybody out to give them the best and safest and easiest opportunity to bring out their ideas, feel comfortable in trying anything as long as we learn from it, right? So engagement is critical, empowerment is critical, setting leadership up to a point where they know how to engage and empower their folks and support these efforts. Because if we don't, then after this thing has been solved, the problem will come back. So that's why I made it such a mission of mine to work on sustainability. But it starts with the people. It has to be the people. If they are truly owning their solution, you have a much better chance of them sustaining it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's two thoughts that come to mind as you're sharing that. And one was, what you said there right at the end. If they're a part of that, you're going to have that greater buy-in. Whenever people are part of a dialogue, part of a solution, you're going to have a lot more buy-in, and they're going to be more likely to want to implement whatever it is you've come up with. Right. But also, I would think so often we have, leadership that is maybe 2 to 3 steps removed from whatever the problem is. And as you're talking about, you want to bring the people to the table who are closest to that issue, because they really know what's going on. If I'm, 2 levels up, I might think I know what's going on. I might think I know the issue, but I don't really know the issues. I may be getting it second or third hand, or I'm seeing the second or third ripple effect from whatever that issue is. And so if we fail to bring people in, I would think that we're kind of setting it up for failure. And as you said, that the sustainability of that solution is going to be a problem.
Yeah. So what happens in traditional approaches to problem solving, and traditional isn't, I'm trying not to give it a negative connotation, but in my view, it's negative. So we force a solution on a group that had very little or no say in it.
Right.
So, in a manufacturing environment, engineers have designed this thing, but they didn't talk to the people that have to use it every single day. So it looks very elegant, but it becomes so complicated that people don't use it the way it was designed. So you've got to have knowledge of what the problem is that you're trying to solve and how it impacts a person directly. And the best way that I know is to have those people that are in the process, that are dealing with it every day. They don't have to be the only people helping solve, right? There is kind of an ideal makeup of a team. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Dr. M, who's calling us in from India by the way.
Oh,
He's
that's
been in like
fantastic.
2 or 3 or 4 activities that I've been in lately. So he's following me around, and I think that's just great.
That's
So
great.
shout out to
Yeah.
you, Dr. M. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so leadership, right? So if they clearly think they know the answer, the question you could ask yourself is, well, then why haven't they solved it, right? So
Right.
they haven't. So they know that they need help. That's great. That's a great first step. What
Right.
I have to do is give them the image of what that looks like, right? How do we get the team from point A to point B? And what's your role as leaders to give the team the autonomy, the empowerment, the engagement, so that they will feel like they have the power to make the change, and you're not going to evaluate it at the end and say yes or no. The answer has to be yes.
Yeah.
The answer has to be yes. So the facilitation has to lead them to a yes that follows corporate policies and safe practices and reasonable spending of company funds. We typically don't spend much money, actually. The investment is in the people, not even in the consultant. I mean, I don't work for free. I work for food, but it's the team members that really, their time is so valuable and their focus is so valuable. But what we're also teaching them is your people can solve even more problems for you. So it demonstrates to leadership how they could engage their workforce even further.
Right. Yeah. And I would think too that not only would the solution that is developed as a result of that event, is that more likely to be sustainable when you've had that process, but that overall people are going to feel more satisfied, more included, more connected, that the fact that leadership took the time to involve them in that process. Again, I would think there'd be a ripple effect there that overall they're just going to feel more valued because they got to be a part of that process.
Well, you're right. And just an example of that. So I've had teams I worked with 2, 3, 4, 10 years ago, right? And one recent team sent me some photos recently of an area that we had worked on was like 3 times nicer than we had left it. And they were so proud of that they sent pictures. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, right? Because they took that ownership and they didn't leave it where it was. They kept learning, they kept trying, they had the autonomy, they had the support, they had the leadership commitment to let them keep trying and improving, keep trying and improving. And that just makes me feel so good. They're like my extended family, when I work with folks, because we live in the Kaizen event anywhere from 10 hours to 14 hours every day, 3, 4 days. You really get to know people and you get to know what really matters to them. And you see people shine. It's just impressive how the cream rises to the top and how people, they really care. We don't give them enough credit for caring about how things are going on in the company they work for, but give them the opportunity, let them act like business owners. And it's just impressive.
That's great. Yeah, that's really cool. So do you ever hear from leaders any pushback about the amount of time it's going to take on the front end? Is that something you hear from people?
All the time. So here's the thing. Having done 300 and some odd ones of these, you get an image in your head of the complexity, the scope of the problem, the image of the team, the activities you're going to have to do to kind of get their thinking opened up. So you say, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I know that's 3.5 days, right? Now, anytime I say X amount of days, fully focused,
right,
the first reaction is, that sounds like a lot. Can you do it in less?
I had a feeling.
Yeah, especially those that have not been through the process.
Right.
You've done dozens or hundreds or thousands. You get it. You know why. It's a journey, right?
Right.
You know about team storming, forming, and norming, right? The whole team effort. We have to do that during the whole session. These people don't typically work together in this way. Right. So this is truly a test of my ability to give the image of what is necessary to win, and the leadership commitment to take that leap of faith, right? So it's actually a test. It's a test of me and it's a test of them. If I can't convince that this is truly a 3.5 day problem, and they say, but I can only give you 2, then the only thing I can do is to say, I have choices. One is, I can't get you to a sustainable solution in 2 days. I can get you a group of ideas, but you won't get the amount of implementation and testing if they don't see that that's not okay, I have chosen to walk away, because you need the leadership commitment to invest the time and effort and approach. If you want your team to win, if the thing you're trying to solve is that critical,
Right.
and I don't typically get involved in things that aren't pretty complex or critical,
Right.
because
Right.
internal resources typically get the simpler stuff.
Right.
I mean, not to make light of that, but
But it
these
makes
can
sense.
be anywhere from $500,000 annually to $20 million annually. So this is no small thing. So if you're not willing to add a day of 8 to 12 people's time to save $2 million next year,
Right.
I don't think you have your priorities quite right.
Right.
Unless you got bigger things going on that you can get done in 3 days. I don't know about that. So, so for me, the best I can do is provide that image and understanding of what it takes to get you to that sustainable solution, something that won't require work after we're done.
Right.
There will be some, but no homework.
Yeah.
I want the team to be able to implement the sustainable solution before we're done, so that they can report out, they can get recognition for it, they can see it, that it's already generating a positive benefit to the organization and to the people they work with.
Right.
So I have to give that image early.
Right.
And it is truly a test of my ability to provide that image and their ability to provide that leadership commitment.
Yeah. Now, I had a feeling that your answer would be yes, that you have to deal with that question, because I get that too. When it comes to taking the time to really invest in communication and workplace culture, there's pushback to, well, yeah, I know that's important, but we have this, this, and this, and this we need to do, or, oh, yeah, we'd like to get to that when there's more time. And understanding that there will never be a great time, and that you're ultimately going to save so much time by doing this shorter term investment. And so I'm not surprised that's, that for some people you really do have to have that conversation and paint that picture. That makes sense.
Yeah, when I did this work internally for a corporation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I had no choice, right?
Right.
So the challenge for me then was to give them something that if they looked at it 2 months later, it would make sense, right?
Right.
But now, since I'm doing this on my own, I have my principles. My principle is I want the team to win. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do everything, blood, sweat, and tears, to give them that winning experience. So it's not a winning experience if your leadership isn't committed, right, to support you. Yeah. So I can make those choices. Yeah. Now, maybe 20 years ago, I couldn't have made that choice, because you got to put food on the table. But now, and I do have that experience where I know what that looks like. Right. And I know what happens when you are shortcutting. Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah. And that's not going to do, you any favors either if you go ahead and agree to shortchange the process, and it's not going to be a sustainable solution. That's not going to help sustain your business, because Absolutely. That the outcomes aren't going to be there. And so, being willing to and able to stand by that. Well, this is really what you need. It's like a prescription, from the doctor. Like, this is the medicine you need. You have to be willing to take it.
Right. That's right. Now, let's be honest. I mean, if I think something takes 3.5 days and I've got 2 extra hours, I'm either going. Now there are choices. One is, can we get them to a better, even more breakthrough, which that actually happened recently, which was really cool. I had 4 extra hours because the team just did so well, and they integrated and engaged so quickly. Yeah. They were so hungry for improvement. It was just fabulous.
That's awesome.
4 hours let us take them beyond the objectives they had stated to one level breakthrough beyond. And from a company standpoint, for their customer, that was going to make a huge difference in the type of results they were going to see. So for me, it's a challenge. How do you use those 4 hours effectively and efficiently, so that it's not just filling time? Let's not fill time. Time is such a limited resource.
Yeah.
So my challenge now is, how do I get them that next level? Or if you really have nothing, give them 4 hours of their lives back. I mean, you can do that.
Right. Yeah. That's a reward for working so hard. Yeah.
Right. No one ever complained when a meeting ended early. That's something we've said many times.
Absolutely.
Right. Right.
So, thinking about, again, going back to your book, The Wheel of Sustainability, talk to us about it. Explain the wheel, explain the components, kind of educate us on what is the wheel of sustainability.
So thank you for that question. So there's nothing new in continuous improvement. It's all about how you think about your approach, right?
Mhm.
So many years ago, let's call it 10 to 15 years ago, I was frustrated because I was helping teams solve these really complex problems, and it was exciting and fun, and they got all emotional sometimes at the end. But what bothered me was at 2 months later, 6 months later, the problem had come back, right?
Mm.
So I said, okay, I owe it to them, I owe it to me to challenge myself and come up with a way to sustain these things so that they don't come back, right? So over the years, I came up with this little model. We used to call it Adam's molecule. It looked a bunch of bubbles around a circle. And we just made fun of it, but the components were pretty much the same. And in 2014, I was at this big conference in Ohio, and I'm drawing this thing out for people at a table that I'm networking with. And I'm noticing that they're writing on their napkins.
Mm.
They're like taking notes on it. I'm like, oh my God, this actually is something useful, right?
Right.
So it wasn't just for the people I was helping, it was helping others. I could describe. So the imagery of a wheel came about, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, not 100% certain. The whole idea is there are 8 elements or spokes, and the central element is the hub, which is leadership commitment. So the imagery is, if any of the spokes are missing, the wheel gets weaker.
Right.
If the hub falls away, the wheel totally falls apart, right? So that imagery seemed to make sense, and the leadership commitment in the center supports each of those spokes.
Right.
So that's the general view of it. Now I'll tell you I'm going to try to do this in 3 minutes, but I won't.
We have plenty of time.
I know how I am. So there are 8 spokes. So I start off at 12 o'clock, and that's notification. So a team is going to make a change for the better in a Kaizen event or a project, and it's going to affect the organization or a subgroup of the organization, right? So not everybody knows about it, so we need to notify them. Right. But in traditional notification, we're telling people what they have to do and how to do what they do.
Right.
In sustainable notification with strong leadership commitment, and I'm going to talk about leadership commitment separately, what we're doing is we're notifying them, helping them understand why. So we made this change. This is why we did it. This is why it's going to be better for you. This is why it's going to be safer. This is why it's better for those you work with and your customers, and so on. So things that should matter.
Right.
Now, we also understand, if we've all been in large size meetings, that 4% of the people are actually paying attention.
Right.
Okay. Right. So this message has to be compelling, but we're still not going to capture hearts and minds. So leadership comes in because they participate. Okay. Right. The team that worked on the thing should participate, but leadership should participate, must participate. They need to be aligned around the why and why it's so important. Okay. That's pretty simple. That's pretty basic. But again, 4% are paying attention. So the next spoke is called training and review. And this is a one-to-one activity where we are going to talk about, I'm going to show you how to do something, and then you're going to demonstrate to me that you can do it. And when we do it one-to-one, clearly there's a lot more investment of time and caring about the other person, because you're making a safe opportunity to ask questions that are meaningful to that person. You also share that you care enough about them that you can demonstrate how to do it yourself. You took the time. So if you thought of an organization with 400 people, these are 400 one-to-one activities.
Wow.
Right? But if it's that important for people to do it right, you do it. Now, how do you do that? You divide and conquer. Clearly, you start off with the team. 10 to 12 people can now divide and conquer, right? And the message stays together, but you can teach others. And as you'll find out, as you get to know me, things are pretty simple in my world. So the changes can't be that complex. In fact, they're usually taking complexity away and simplifying.
Right.
But the hard part is things are different. And human beings don't like things that are different.
No.
They don't like things that are changed. So why is this better for me? And we'll get to that spoke in a moment. The next one is called visible evidence. So the idea here is that from over 20 feet away, I can tell if things are being followed properly or improperly followed, if things are okay or not okay, if the person understands what they're doing or not, doesn't understand what they're doing. Because if I see it, that means anybody can see it. It has to be that simple. If the light is red, we all know that that means stop. If the light is green, we know that that means go. So it has to be to that level of simplicity. But if I do see it as a leader, what I'm supposed to do is, if everything's good, I should be stepping in and congratulating. Thank you for doing this right. Recognize that. Yeah. If things aren't right, I need to help engage with the person and help. What can we do to help you get back on track? I notice that you're not following the standard operating procedure. Can I show you this and show you why this is critical to follow it properly? So visible evidence allows anybody to see it. So this means large signage, this means lights, this means big displays, this means outlines of tools, this means good labeling of where the printer paper is, just so that no one has to wonder, is it in the right place? Or if I left a wrench sitting in a workshop, well, where'd the wrench come from and where does it go?
Right.
If I label it well, anybody can put the wrench back.
Right.
So we take things out of people's toolboxes and we give them everything they need right where they need them, because that's the next spoke, and it's called all tools available. And what that means is that I have everything I need to do my job in the safest, most productive manner in a way that I never have to search for it.
Mm.
So this is the leadership commitment here, is to say yes. So if a team says, I need 4 printer stations, whereas the company had 2, let's say.
Right.
The answer has to be yes. Well, why would they have said 4 if it didn't make sense to solve the critical problem that we're trying to solve? Yeah. Or I need to put up a whiteboard, or I need a new computer program, or I need 3 wrenches where I used to have 1, and I'm going to hang them right where I need them. So leadership has to be trusting of the team. They've already given them authority and autonomy to solve the problem, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I call that chartering. So the answer has to be yes. So I always coach leadership around that one, because what are they first thinking? Can you do it with less?
Of course,
well, of course you can. You have been, but you're trying to solve something.
It wasn't working, right?
It wasn't working as well as you wanted to. Okay.
Right.
All right. So the 5th spoke is what I call clear benefits, and in the old days we'd call it what's in it for me.
Right.
So my teams hate this aspect. Now, one thing I didn't tell you is that all of these get implemented during the Kaizen event. This is not an afterwards thing. So early on, a team starts to consider some ideas that they want to implement. Rather than waiting until they fully implement everything, I have them go visit with their friends and neighbors outside of the team. Again, a one-to-one activity. So if I have 8 team members, they're going to engage with 8 different people, one at a time. Each person gets a person. And they don't love this. Why don't they love this? Because they're about to they haven't fully formed their idea. Right. And they're going to go talk to somebody and say, we're thinking of doing this. And what, Kelly, do you think is the natural reaction of the person that they speak with? What do you think the first thing they say is?
Why?
That's nicer than what it usually is. What were you thinking?
Yeah.
Why weren't you listening to us?
Right.
I've been yelled at, screamed at, people have walked away, right? Because human nature is expect the worst, hope for the best.
Right.
But let's be honest. The people in the team start to get married to their idea.
Right.
But they need to get this unfiltered, unbiased feedback.
Right.
For many reasons, but 2 or 3 of the most important reasons are: 1, you might have missed something critical.
Right.
So the story here is they went out after getting yelled at by 14 different people. One person said, you realize I'm a left-hander, right? And this doesn't work for lefties, but it would work for righties. And the team's like, perfect time to get it. Not after you've implemented, right?
Exactly.
Before you implement. Pretty important. So that's important. The other piece is, again, this is about engagement and empowerment. So you've now taken 8 team members and you've turned them into 16.
Right.
So you got more voices, you got more ideas, you got more potential for buy-in, you got more thoughts, you got more people that feel like they were involved.
Right.
And they were involved. So they feel like it and they actually were. So that's important. Again, they hate it because their first interaction is going to be not positive. And I've had to break up some pretty challenging discussions, but we're used to that. Okay. The next one is layered audits. So the idea is that the person doing the work should audit their work essentially continuously. Is it right? Right. And it should be a simple way to do that. The next level, so the layer is the person responsible managing that person with less frequency should be auditing. Okay. As you go up all the way through the CEO, it goes to maybe once a year, once a quarter. The idea, though, is that the audit can take no more than 5 minutes, because everybody's got 5 minutes to give. Right. But if it's an hour, no one's going to do it. Right. So it's got to be simple enough that anybody can do it in 5 minutes or less. So the team has to create that audit. It can be visual. I want sign-offs so people can see that people actually audited. Right. Again, it has to be easy to tell. You don't have to be the same. Like if you audit something and I audit something, our scores don't have to be the same. Our comments don't have to be the same. We don't really want that. You shouldn't audit at the same time. The same people shouldn't audit every day. You shouldn't audit the whole system. You just audit critical pieces randomly, and eventually everybody realizes, hey, this is pretty important. Now, what happens if you see an item that isn't working as it should? Well, good leaders go in and they adjust and they help and they correct behavior and they learn with the people. Maybe this isn't the best. Maybe there's even a better idea. So use the audit as an engagement, not a stand back 20 feet and check boxes. So I always have leaders, when we create the audit, you're going to sign off that you were there and write a comment. Well done. This looks great. Okay, I see that this tool wasn't put back. What do I have to do to help you so that it's always there? Do we need to add a label? That kind of stuff. Right. So people engage with that. Okay, 7th component is accountability. So think about if you have small children, a child's about to touch a hot stove, and you jump up from your sofa like the one behind me to stop them from, pull their hand back, yell at them, tears come to their eyes, but you're going to keep them from harm. Right. That's my image of accountability. So in a business setting, accountability means that people will not harm the customer, harm the business, harm themselves by not following the proper work. Okay. So you as leaders, and anybody can be a leader in this context. Right. You have to say, well, that's not okay. Let's find out what's keeping you from doing this right, but it's not okay to do it wrong. Right. So you have to be willing to step in. So you're late for a meeting, you're about to walk by this thing, you see it, you make choices. You go to the meeting, you've now said it's okay to do it wrong. But if you take a diversion and you go to that area and you have and engage, you have now reinforced how critical that change is to everybody. Yeah. Okay. Last one, and then the hub. The last one is recognition. So it's all about stories. It's all about recognizing cause and effect. It's all about somebody saying, before we did this work, it took us 2 hours to get started to service this area that was not running. Now it takes 10 seconds to prepare. Wow. So people tell stories and they hand down information and they generate excitement and enthusiasm that way. The ultimate is when somebody tells that story as if they were there and they weren't even on the team. Right. I always look for that, because when that happens, you've gotten all the way through the organization, which is vital, critical. So we coach leaders, encourage those stories, share those stories, have people who live those stories tell those stories. It reinforces with them. It makes so much more difference when the person, right at that work level is sharing their story of improvement. So there was no president or plant manager or CEO or whatever saying this is what we got to do. No, this worked. My life is better because we did this. Right. So the hub is leadership commitment. So this all ties together because we have to prepare leadership to be able to support all of those elements, and the whole process of putting people together to give them the opportunity, which I call chartering, which you don't have time for, is all about identifying that work in such a way that you are empowering and engaging your people and giving them almost that work contract. Your job is to solve. My job is to give you everything you need to solve.
Right.
Good facilitation will help you manage all of that so that in the end you have a solved thing and it will sustain as it is. Okay, that wasn't 3 minutes, so sorry about that.
Maybe a little more, but that's okay. It was all good stuff. And it's all such good information, and I can see why, as you're at that conference having this conversation, people are frantically writing all of that down, because it makes a lot of sense. It's very tangible, actionable, and I can see that whole process and all of those spokes are going to be an essential part of the process. And one of the things that really stood out for me and resonates so much is when you were talking about the accountability piece, and the leadership piece, but especially that accountability piece, and being willing to have that feedback dialogue. One of the things I talk about a lot is cultivating a feedback culture, where not only is leadership giving and receiving feedback regularly, but at the peer level, you're comfortable and able to have that feedback dialogue where you can, praise your peers and or say, hey, we just went through this process, and I think we're supposed to do it this way. Can we revisit that, or what, and in a safe but healthy way, have those conversations and hold one another accountable in a positive way. I think that's fantastic. And I think that if coaching leaders and teams as a part of this process to be able to have those conversations, and if leaders and teams can have that type of workplace culture and dynamic, I could see that would really help that sustainability piece hold, probably.
Right. That's a great point. So nothing happens without the people being part of the solution, right? I mean, you have the greatest systems and equipment, et cetera. It doesn't matter if the people aren't bought in, if they're not aligned, if they don't care, it all falls apart, right? So this is all about giving them everything possible so that they feel like they have that authority, autonomy, they can win. People like to win. I find that now. I follow a baseball team that just lost 19 straight games, so that was pretty unimpressive. So apparently they don't like to win. They kind of fell into a win last night, but most people like to win. So for those that like to win, this is about setting them up for the win. So I found that as I wrote the book, what I cared about was I wanted to get it to a point where anybody could do it.
Right.
Okay. This is not impossible to do. This is not hard to do. What was hard to do was describe it in such a way that it felt like I can do that.
Right.
So I've got stories in the book from my home. I've got stories about me getting kicked out of my kitchen, helping service industries and nonprofits and manufacturing, what to do, what not to do, my examples, my silly stories of success and failure, because I want people to feel comfortable enough that, hey, I could try this.
Right.
And for me, I always say to the team, we're going to put it in every component. And just the mere fact that we're going to give it an effort to do that puts us way further ahead than if we had not. Right? Because the wheel originally did not have 8 spokes. 2 were missing for sure. And, trial and error taught me that those spokes need to be there because that was falling apart. That was a gap. Now, there's probably more, clearly, and some kind of overlap. But for me, that's my image of it. That's the best I had. And I had to finally put a bow on it and say, that's it.
Right. No, that's great. Yeah. So are there typical challenges you see that leaders and teams face? They've gone through this process. You've set them free to start to, right, to sustain that solution. Are there kind of typical challenges you see that leaders and teams face and struggle with?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you think about this, any change is going to be challenged at some point. Mm-hmm. So there's that moment, 2 a.m., if you're working 24 hours a day, right? And it's 2 a.m. and somebody actually is choosing to or doesn't realize that they're not following the new method. Mm. That's a challenge. Who steps in?
Right.
So ideally, their coworker steps in immediately because they say, hey, Sarah, this is actually, we did this and this is better. And let me show you why it's better.
Right.
Or did you realize that the tool that you just went to your toolbox for is right there in front of you? That actually happened a couple of times. Like they didn't even know.
Right.
So, or somebody fills in for somebody and they weren't as aware. So ideally, somebody knows in their heart, this is that recognition piece.
Right.
Or that clear benefits piece. There's, like I said, there's this overlap. This helped me. Let me tell you about the time it helped me. Let me show you why this is better. Training and review, right? Let me show you why this is better. So that's ideal. But sometimes even with the best of intentions, somebody chooses to do the wrong thing, or they still think they have a better way.
Right.
Well, this is the test of true leadership, the leadership commitment piece. Are you going to allow it to occur?
Right.
At what level? And so good news is most of the time, because it's obvious, remember, we're trying to put in all these elements to make it almost impossible to do the wrong thing. It's
Right.
visual. You've been trained. You have everything you need. We're auditing it. You know, you've got all these human and physical elements and behavioral elements together. But there is that test. So the reality is sometimes the business has to make a tough decision,
Right.
which is if somebody chooses to do the wrong thing, well, that's not a Kaizen issue, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
a policy issue.
Right.
You decide as a business, is it okay for people to break policy? If it is okay, you got a bigger problem.
Right.
If it's not okay, now you're going to deal with it with whatever type of disciplinary system you might have.
Right.
Now, when people put their lives at risk and they break those policies, they, companies have zero tolerance policies there, and they get terminated. And that's ugly, but that actually is better for everybody, better for the company, better for their coworkers, and actually better for the person that you get terminated, because we didn't allow them to keep putting their life at risk.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. The human element can be the greatest asset and also the biggest challenge.
Absolutely. We're the most variable part of any process.
Right.
And by the way, I don't want anybody to think that this wheel of sustainability takes away any of people's creativity. What it actually does is it opens up their creativity even more. It makes them think in ways that sometimes they've never thought.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of people in the old days of continuous improvement, they would say, well, standard work, it's going to make us robots. Absolutely not. What it does is it makes repetitive type work. I don't have to worry about it. Now I can focus my mind on the more complex things that aren't repetitive.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Dr. M says, hopefully his video is back. He was saying at one point he was having difficulty with seeing video, but he said that it's easy to implement. It's support and sustaining that matters, and that you do a great job with helping with that. So
thank you, Dr. M.
Yeah. So I know you shared some success stories and examples. Is there another kind of key story or example that you would like to share, or maybe one of your favorite?
I have so many favorites.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a lot of favorites. About 15 years ago, I was in a factory. So I don't want everybody to think this is just factory work, but some of my favorite stories are in factory. So we were working on reducing the time it took to go from one paint color to another paint color for ceiling tiles. Not really color, but it's the style of paint. So they call that changeover, and it took probably about 30 minutes at the time. So I'm going to give you a new term. It's called a Gemba walk. Gemba means in Japanese, the place where work is done. That's not the exact definition, but it's pretty close. Go see it. Go see it. Don't talk about it. Go see it. Okay. That's that's the principle. Get out of the dang room and go see it. You get your answers so much quicker. Okay. So we're walking the factory line all the way through. And again, we're focusing on changing from one product to another. But at the very end of the line, there is a quality technician. This woman was taking a ceiling tile and taking a box knife and cutting edges physically off the ceiling tile so that she could assess the color of the paint on the little edges. So had we not cut those 4 edges she was cutting with the box knife, had nothing to do with what we were doing, but it really bothered us. Really bothered us. And I found out that was like their number one safety issue in the facility for the past. Engineers had worked 6 months on this thing. So we had about a 3-day session. And in the middle of day 2, it might have been 4 days. The middle of day 2, this big mechanic, he's probably about 6'8" and about 320. I mean, so I am 5'7" and 160 dripping wet. I'm a little guy. I'm like the little dog, and he's like the big dog. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, middle of this, we had been accomplishing a bunch of different prioritized work that the team had chosen to work on first to improve changeover. And he comes up to me at a break and says, Adam, I'm really bothered by what was going on over there. I think I've got an idea that could solve that problem. He says, can I work on it? And I said to him, I'll make up the name Tom. That wasn't his name. Tom, that's a great idea, but it's not my choice. This is a team effort. Let's ask the team what they think. What would they like to do? So he asked them, he goes, and they're all like, yeah, we're doing great. We'll be fine. He says, I think an hour and a half and I should be back. So one of the team members said, can I help him? I'd love to help him, and maybe we can get back in an hour. And the team's like, yeah, go. So they go. And about, let's say 2 hours later, nothing ever happens as quickly as you think it's going to be.
Never.
They come back with this device. It's like an old vise, big jaws, right? If you understand what a vise is, not everybody does. So, but anyway, they had put a 2-foot wide angle iron on both jaws of the vise that you could close onto itself. And Tom says, and they're grinning ear to ear, by the way. And Tom says, check this out. So they put this ceiling tile in vertically, and they tighten the vise for about 3 seconds. And he taps the tile, and it breaks free of the edge, like all the way down that 2-foot thing. And the team's like blown away. So the other guy turns it and does it again. And somebody said, let me try that. Boom. And we're like, oh my God. He goes, so this is a prototype. And it's like, no, that's working. So he had a little cart that it was on. So we wheeled it down to the quality technician. He says, I don't remember her name, but let's call her Mary. Come on, Mary, check this out. I made you something. I made you a present. And so he shows her what to do. She taps it. It breaks off free. And this was in Oregon, but I'm pretty sure it was the first hug he ever got in that factory. Pretty sure of that. But that's not the end of the story, because, okay, so, we gave it to her right then and there. And she used it for the rest, because she had to do that test, I think, every 30 minutes. So, wow. I mean, that's not, what they were doing was horrible. Okay. So we finish our work through the week, and we designed this nice little tour presentation, and we saved Tom for last. So in the old days, we wouldn't do any PowerPoints. We would just actually bring people out, and the team would explain what they did and give a tour and all that kind of cool stuff. So we toured the line. We had met our objectives of cutting the time in half for the changeover, but we said, wait, we've got one special thing for you. And about 15 staff members came out, plant manager and ops manager and supervisors and HR manager, et cetera. And Tom brings, did I call her Mary? I don't even know. Mary, but anyway, he brings her out the quality technician. He goes, check this out. And so she puts the thing in and taps, and it knocks over. And to this day, I've never seen 15 jaws drop at the exact same time. And then Tom got the second hug that he had ever gotten in a factory, because the HR manager ran up to him and gave him this big old hug and said, we've been working on this for 6 months. We have engineers working on it. You guys figured this out in 3 days. Actually,
oh my goodness. Right.
And she said the thing that you always hope for. We need to do more of this. We need to get our people involved. That's leadership commitment. That's what I love to see. But what was even cooler was the thing that they didn't see after it was all over, that still gives me goosebumps. The 6'8", 320 Tom standing up. I always do a feedback session after everybody's gone. It's just them and me. We've blood, sweat, and tears. And he's up there, and tears are welling up in his eyes. And he says, I've worked in this company 20 years or 15 years. I've never done anything that mattered to me as much as what we did this week.
Oh, wow.
It's the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when you know you're helping people. And
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
I don't always get tears welling up in people's eyes, but I want them to have that type of experience, something that's that impactful. And
Yeah.
it doesn't always happen,
Right.
but sometimes it does. And it's really, really cool. It's very
Yeah.
gratifying for somebody like me.
Yeah. No, that's a great story, and that's amazing. And it's, at the base level, it's such a simple thing,
Right.
but it's so powerful. Not only just being empowered to go off and explore this idea that he had, but to help his colleague, help the process, help everybody. And then, of course, yes, saving the time and all of that. But it's really all those other things that come along with that. That's really just, like I
Right.
like to say, that's where the magic is, and that's the good stuff,
Right.
and that's
Right.
awesome.
Well, and you said it next to the word love, help is my second favorite four-letter word,
Yeah, yeah.
because people helping people, right? They care.
Mhm.
Right. This wasn't going to help him.
Right, right.
He saw something that he could do that was going to benefit somebody else, and he just took the time.
Yep.
He just gave of himself for her, and I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Right. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap up here, are there? I like to ask my guests towards the end. Are there any key don'ts and do's that you would like to share?
Okay. Well, don'ts are more fun.
Yeah.
Don'ts are more fun. So never question your sponsor's commitment directly. They
Mm,
don't like that.
right. Right.
There's a long story about that one. It was about 22 years ago, and I about got fired on the spot. So
Oh my goodness.
that's actually in the book. So if you
Okay.
want to see there's actually quite a few stories about how I almost got fired.
Right.
So I think the key do here is to stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish, and,
Mm,
and forget that it's not about you at all. It's about the people that you're serving. So if you can create the imagery of what serves the people that will help them accomplish this difficult effort, then it's easier to explain what leadership commitment looks like and why it's so critical.
right.
Right? You are trying to solve a problem that has injured 4 people in the last year. No one has solved that. We're going to put a team together, and what we want to do is want to give them the opportunity to turn it into a zero injury situation.
Right.
Is that not worth it? Is it not worth helping them do everything possible to solve this critical problem that's harming people? So I'm using that as an example, but if you can stay in a principle-based view,
Mm-hmm.
so most people would not argue with the statement, no one should ever go home hurt from their
Right.
work.
Right.
Okay. That's one. The other is we should never disappoint our customer. Right. So if you can tie to those two things, profits are great, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you disappoint customers, you're not going to profit.
Right.
Right. So,
and if you keep having injured workers who can't show up to work and produce whatever, you're not going to have profit.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So if you can stick to principles in support of what you're trying to accomplish, then the image of what leaders have to do will make more sense to them. It's harder to argue, why do I need 3.5 days? Can you not do it in 2 days?
Right.
Of course you can. But what you're going to give up is this, that, and the other. Are you willing to do that? I'm not willing to, but are you willing to do that?
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't even know if that even tried to answer your question.
You did.
The don'ts are just, sometimes we say things thinking that we're saying it the right way, and it definitely didn't get the response that you were looking for. Then you realize I probably shouldn't have said it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So do work on getting commitment, but don't alienate in the process.
Try not to do that. Yes. And certainly don't make it about you.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's the easiest trap to fall into.
Right.
It truly has to be. So as somebody that serves businesses that aren't mine, right? Mm-hmm. It has to be 100% about them.
Right.
I mean, but I know that if I do a poor job for them, they won't be calling me back.
Right.
But so the reality is the only way to know that I've done a great job for them is that they have this amazing experience that is only beneficial to them.
Right.
Then they might be able to put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, Adam helped us do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, Adam, thank you so much for spending time with us today for this conversation. This was great information, and I certainly encourage everyone to pick up a copy of your book, The Wheel of Sustainability. And I'll make sure in the video description there's links to connect to you and to the book. But do you just want to share the best place for people to find you and connect with you?
Sure, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn for sure, Adam Lawrence, and I also have Process Improvement Partners has a page as well. We have a website, pi-partners.com. I do have a YouTube channel. I think I have 29 subscribers, so thank you. Those are probably half my family members.
We all start with family. That's
oh, of course. And then certainly if you were to Google my business, you would find out that I've had a number of nice reviews. So if you were curious about what people have to say about working with me, that's a nice unfiltered way. You know, we can put anything on our websites, but you know what? When people review you on Google, ain't nothing you can do except reply. So
that's right. That's right.
Telling you what they think. And I appreciate everybody who's taken that moment to do that.
That's great.
You know, and there's all sorts of contact details on my LinkedIn, on my YouTube, and on my website. So I've got my direct cell number as well. So please, you know, I love talking to folks. I could do this all day. Obviously, I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna shut up now.
Well, thank you so much. And again, I'll make sure all those links are included in the video description as this lives on in the land of online. So again, thank you so much. This was a real pleasure. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you all. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.